quite thrilled to welcome our keynote speaker, Abby Lee Miller.
All right, everybody that's out there, get up here. Hurry up. You're gonna miss the beginning of the story. No, not you guys, sit down. Ding dong. I try not to say that in my everyday life, but it just keeps coming out. There's always somebody. Thank you, though. All right, no one else is coming. They're gonna miss. Now, don't tell them what I talked about. Okay. Don't tell them I talked about them. Okay. So, thank you for welcoming me here to Houston. The Ultimate Women's Expo was like that ultimate dance competition, kind of, that word. When I first was hired and they asked me to come, and I saw the ultimate thing, I was like, okay, yes, I'll do it. So I'm here in Houston, and it's like I flew in last night and went to dinner, and then I'm here speaking, and I'm gonna fly right back out, so I don't get to see any of your lovely city too much. And it's freezing in California right now. It's even worse in Pittsburgh. So thank you for watching the show. Now stop watching the show. We don't get any residuals, not one penny. Kids, if you want to be in television or film, so what happens is those old TV shows that you watch over and over and over, all those people get paid, like Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, all those old shows, they still get paid. Not us, not reality. And it's different. So watch my YouTube channel, The Real Abby Lee Miller, instead, because I spill the tea. Recently, I've started doing a lot of videos where I really talk about what happened on the show and what you saw versus what actually happened. And there's also, for the kids that are here, if there's any children or if you moms have kids at home, there's tricks on there. I teach front limbers and back walkovers, chin stands, elbow stands. It's all on there for free. And the kids can watch that over and over and over again instead of the show. And I also teach on Zoom. When the pandemic started, a lot of my faculty members kind of jumped on the bandwagon really quick and took my students and started teaching them privately on Zoom. And I jumped on it a little later, but I've kept going. So they're all back in the studios teaching, and I'm still on Zoom teaching all over the world. So I'll open my screen. Yeah, it's incredible. And a lot of the teachers are like, oh, I can't just sit on my butt and teach like that. And I'm like, I can. I've been doing that for years. Before a pandemic, I've got this. And it's incredible. Kids in London, Ireland, Scotland, Bulgaria, Romania, Israel are all in class together. And Mexico, I'm trying to think of the other countries, and El Salvador. And they're all speaking different languages, many of them. And I just say, grand plie in second, and everybody goes down. And what I love is I can mute them all and no moms talk. Nobody, every once in a while I'll see a hand come in to take a picture if I highlight a child, and so the kid's there and it's me, you know, I'm correcting that child, and the moms will sneak in and try to get a picture. But most of the time it's in the middle of the night, or, you know, when it's in another country, the time zone's off, so the moms are in their robes or their nightgowns, or like their hair's a mess, they're in their as Meghan Trainor would say, you know, their morning hair, and they're in their hoodie, and they don't want to be on the screen, so they just run past, and I'm like, yes, it's great. So, all right, we're gonna talk about how the show started, because that's mostly what people want to know. So, I was teaching at my studio in Pittsburgh, and I'm very, well, I think the network will refer to them as, the network really didn't want you to know who I was. I was not on the show. The network didn't know who I was, let's put it that way. So my friend, John Corella, a very good-looking, handsome man who was a dancer, he was a successful commercial dancer. He did Celine Dion's world tour, Janet Jackson. Back in the day, he did the Emmys, the Oscars, all the music awards, Grammys, and he was a working dancer. It's different than being a good dancer or being a competition winner or being a working dancer. So he was getting to the end of his career. He was 34, and he started to coach some kids. He didn't realize their mothers came along with the deal. He was at a dance competition in Las Vegas, Nevada, at a big swanky hotel, and I was at the same competition with my really good older kids, which you don't know their names, sadly. They were there. My little kids that were beginning competition, novice, their first time at nationals, they were down the street at like a rinky-dink hotel and doing a much easier competition. So I bumped into him. I hadn't seen him in 20 years, and we stayed up all night talking. And then the next day I said, I have to run to the other hotel to see my little ones. They're doing their solos now. I have to go. And I said, come with me. Jump in a taxi and come with me. So he did. And we went to the hotel, and we walked into the ballroom very much like this, and there was a stage, and out came Maddie, and out came Nia, and another child that you don't know, and Amanda, and Kelsey, this one and that one. And he said, oh my God, Abby, these kids are adorable. They should be on TV. These faces should be on TV. And I went, yeah, come on. I took him outside to meet their mothers. And they were drunk and broke and bitching about everything. The food, the hotel, their rooms, the convention, the competition, the this, the that. We get back in the taxi to leave, and he said, oh, this could be really good. So he had that idea immediately. And the next entire year, he called me about 3 times a day, no lie. Every single day. Well, what happens when this happens? And what about the music? Did the moms pick the music? Because he grew up as a competition dancer, but he had been out of that world for many, many years working. And you know how guys are, they're just like, not paying attention. So he started working on a TV premise. And after a year, he had a format, had all the ideas, and he took it to his good friend who's a casting director for The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And she said, John, I think you're onto something here. This is a great idea, but I hate kids, so it's not for me. She's sorry now, yeah. So I have a friend that's a producer, and he does these famous birthday parties and this and that, over the top stuff. I'm gonna introduce you to him. So John and a guy named Brian Stinson met, and I'll refer to Brian as Satan from now on. So Brian and Satan went around and shopped it to production companies, and they went into turn down, went into Collins Avenue Productions, who never had a hit show, never had a show last a whole season, let alone 14 seasons. So Collins Avenue gave them $3,000 to shoot a sizzle. Now for you kids, a sizzle is a 3 to 5 minute reel of what the show would be about. So they had kids dancing and moms fighting, and kids dancing and moms drunk, and kid drinking, and kids dancing and moms screaming, and kids crying and moms crying. And it was a fast, video, quick. And 11 networks were interested. 11. And that's before there were 50 networks out there. So it came down to 7 and 5, and it came down to Bravo and Lifetime. And Lifetime bought the show. Things would have been much different had Bravo bought the show. So Lifetime bought the show and then completely changed the format. They wanted a housewife show that centered around a dance studio. Because So You Think You Can Dance was on, and Dancing with the Stars numbers were growing and growing every week. Bravo was killing it with the Housewife franchise. So that's what they wanted. They came into Pittsburgh to audition a cast. Not audition, no, interview. Keep that in mind, it's important, that word. They interviewed. So people had to send in videotapes of their house, their husband, their other kids, the kid dancing, their I don't know, their china cabinet, whatever. They said thousands of people auditioned, thousands. How could thousands of people audition? It was on my website, the ad, that was it. They interviewed 30 families, 30 moms and kids. 27 were my students from my studio. 2 were friends of mine who had little boys that I thought were really talented and funny and would make good TV. And the 30th one was Kathy from Candy Apples. Kathy was the first person cast on the show. Now we've done over 500 numbers, 500 dance routines. Could you imagine Vivienne in 500 numbers? She couldn't even walk with the same opposite arm and foot. I mean, seriously. So Kathy was a friend, a colleague. She was in Dance Masters of Ohio. I was in Dance Masters of Pennsylvania. We would see each other at nationals. She would bring her students to my studio to get coached on their interviews and stuff. And even some choreography we did for her. She calls me, "Are you really doing a TV show at your studio?" I said, "I don't know. They're using my studio for the interviews. That's all I know. Using. I'm coming down." I'm like, "Oh, what student and what mom?" Like, that was my next question. She goes, "What do you mean? I'm bringing Vivienne." I'm like, "What?" "All right, we'll come down and do your interview and we'll have lunch afterwards. We'll go to lunch or dinner, that's fine." So that was it. First person cast. Crazy. So the moms went into the room, into my dance studio, sat in a chair. The kids sat next to them, and they spoke. They were interviewed. That's how it happened. Suddenly, they had their cast. Suddenly, my dance studio was in an uproar. There was just chaos. They were coming back to film 8 episodes for a docu-series, a documentary series. All right, I can do this. I was not on the show. I was not hired, but I was asked to be an on-camera choreographer, meaning if I was choreographing or teaching and I was caught on camera, I wasn't going to sue them for using my image. I didn't want to be on camera. I was huge. I was in a bad place in my life. My dad had passed away. He ran my desk, my books, everyone was paid. He died year after year after year. Less people paid. They still came. But then 2008 happened and I lost a ton of stuff and people moved out of Pittsburgh. US Airways pulled out, the hub. It was just bad. Business was bad. People could not afford frivolous extra activities like, dance class. The kids that were really, really good, that were gonna do something with their dancing or get a college scholarship, they were there. And the little babies that it was cheap, they were there. But that middle of the road kid, your bread and butter, they weren't there. So I thought, well, I wanted to have winners. I worked from 14 years old when I started my dance company. My mom owned the studio, and I had done everything. Where are the kids at? Are these kids here? I was a brownie. I was a Girl Scout. I took roller skating lessons, ice skating lessons. I was on the swim team. in the summer. I took karate for like one session. I went to charm school. I went to Sears sewing school. When you bought a sewing machine, you got Sears lessons. I did everything and nothing well. That was like the time when you were a well-rounded child and you just did it all. No, that means you sucked at everything else. Okay, so I went to dance class. And I went once a week to my mom's studio, but I wasn't a studio brat. I wasn't there every minute. I wasn't in the front of every number or the middle of every number. My mother, that's a whole other story. She had 7 studios in Miami, Florida when she left to marry my dad and moved back to Pittsburgh at 36 and hated it every day of her life. So, not the marriage, the Pittsburgh. So she reopened and started all over again. And the lady in the next town had 2 daughters. And my mother was getting these kids like flocking to her as a new business. You usually get a couple kids, tons of kids, because the other owner had 2 daughters. They were in the front, in the middle of every number, and they were the stars, and that was it. So my mom was like, uh-oh, I'm not bringing my kid. She's gonna be in the back on the end. That's it. So my dad took me to all my activities. I was like daddy's girl. And in the summer, we received a letter in the mail at home, and I got the mail that they were having a competition. So the very first time ever, I saw the words dance and competition together. Now, mind you, my mother's students were at the Fontainebleau in Miami Beach, performing with Elvis Presley and the Rat Pack, Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. When the band took a break, my mother's dancers performed, and they got paid. 15, 16, dressed them up like they were 25, they were working. Commercials, Pepsi, Coke, Dentine, all shot on Miami Beach. So when I got this flyer and I said, Mom, I want to do this. She's like, what? What is this? Wait a minute. You're gonna pay money for people to judge your dancing? You're gonna pay them? No, you should be getting paid to perform. But it was Pittsburgh. It's a different town. And dance was just starting this whole boom with competitions. So I got 3 girlfriends. I taught them a trio. I got the costumes. I rhinestoned them. I cut the music when, I don't know if anybody's as old as I am here, but you had the reel-to-reel tape and you had to put it in this little metal thing and slice it with the razor and tape it back together. I did it. And I took them to the competition and they won. And I had that little 12-inch plastic trophy in my hand, and I knew at that moment, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I was put on this earth. Yes, thank you. Thank you. But when I'm designing costumes, those sewing lessons came in handy. And when I was making headpieces, I remembered when I was in the garden club and did floral arranging that it's 1, 2, 3. You know, all those things, they all played a part in who I became. So back to the show. In the class with Maddie, Chloe, Paige, and Nia, there were 18 kids in their group. They were my mini competition team. 18 kids. So 4 got on a TV show and 14 quit. I didn't lose tuition for that year. I lost tuition for the next 10 years of those kids' lives, perhaps. So the 3rd episode is the first episode that you saw on television. A woman came in screaming and yelling at me about her kid. I said she wasn't dressed appropriately. Go out and look like a dancer when you come back in. Her hair was a mess. She had socks on. We were doing acrobatics. She just looked like a ragamuffin, you know? And she wasn't on the show, but the cameras were at the studio. Wouldn't you make your kid look adorable? Like, look at this little one right here in a dress. And she has sparkly shoes. Her hair's done. You know, right? Thinking maybe my kid's gonna get on there. The woman came in screaming. I ran out. The kids were like scared to death. I'm running around the den. I grabbed somebody's flip phone, and that's how long ago. And I run into my room with the senior company, my senior company. 27 kids on the floor in a straddle split like this. They see the cameras run in like, and nobody wants to be the one that moves out of that split, right? Because it's gonna be maybe on TV, so they're like dying there. And can I use the phone? Yes, 911. The dispatcher answers, Officer Broadway, what's your emergency? Officer Broadway? Did he just say that? In the meantime, I've had 24 kids. No, that's a lie. I've had kids in 24 Broadway shows. 24. So I knew New York, I knew Broadway, I knew about the auditions, I knew casting agents, Bernie Telsey, Johnson Liff were calling my studio. Abby, we need a 14-year-old kid that looks 14 or 13 or 12 that does a left side aerial tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And I went in the room and said, okay, stop, the ballet teacher. Stop, who does a left side aerial? Show me. Okay, you, go call your parents. Tell them you need to be in New York City tomorrow at 4 o'clock. The first kid, this said go to the desk and use the phone, they didn't have a phone. Comes in, tears in their eyes. I can't go. My mom can't take off work. Next kid, I can't go. My dad said our car would never make it, but thank you. Next kid, my parents said, no way, I'm not allowed. Last kid, my dad said, you're crazy. Who took off work? Who got a sub to teach my classes? Who drove to New York City? Who paid for the gas in the McDonald's? And the parking ticket? And the speeding ticket, probably? Yes, I did. Because I believed in those kids and their talent more than their own parents. And that's like the thinking in Pittsburgh. That's the method of just the way life is. And I didn't really realize it until I moved. In Pittsburgh, oh, I have this idea, Oh, you don't want to do that. No, don't worry about that. Oh, no. In LA, I have the same idea. Let's get an investor. Let me call somebody. Oh, this is good. We should jump on this now. It's just a different mindset. So let me get back to that room. Dispatcher, Officer Broadway, what's your emergency? I have this psycho woman. She's running around. She's chasing the kids. She's scaring them. It's my building. It's my property. I want her gone. Come get her. And he said, does she have any weapons? And I said, just her mouth. So when that footage, that film got back to the network, they said, who's this? Who is this woman? And they were like, well, that's Abby, the person's studio you're using for free. The gas bill, the electric bill, starting at 7 in the morning, going until 11 o'clock at night. I had no idea what I was doing. And I refused to sign anything. And they said, we need to get her under contract immediately. Nope, we don't have an entertainment attorney in Pittsburgh. Maybe one for the Steelers, but I don't know. I have to figure this out. No. So we were in this huge competition, the very first one in Phoenix, Arizona, and we flew there. And there's a stage built similar to this, and I was down there, just like you are, and I was watching telling the cameramen where they were gonna enter for the competition. Now, we didn't get to do that for any other competition, but that was the first one, and we were using a different film crew from Pittsburgh to out there, so I had to kind of guide them to what was happening. So now I'm directing, right? Not only producing, but directing and never getting those credits. So I'm there, and he puts a piece of paper and a pen in front of me, Satan, and I said, what's this? I'm on census. He said, it's an appearance release for the venue. turn around. Every single person in this room signed one of those to get in here. I turn around, and from here all the way back to that wall, filled with people, parents, filled, because their kids competing too. So I signed a 4-year contract with a 4-year option, 8 years, for $1,500 an episode. Now, some of you, maybe young people, maybe old people, are thinking, hey, that's pretty good. And I thought so too, because I needed it. $1,500 extra a week, just for 8 weeks, this is great. Little did I know, the Jersey Shore kids were making 80 grand a week, and the TV show took in $3.2 million for one 30-second commercial on Tuesday nights. Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, to have one commercial for 30 seconds was $3.2 million. They sold the show to 134 countries. My voice is dubbed in 11 different languages. 2 spin-offs that I was in, Abby's Ultimate Dance Competition, where JoJo was found, Kalani was found, and I did another horrible spin-off I didn't want to do called Abby Studio Rescue. I was the one that needed rescued because they destroyed my business, destroyed it. All the kids should have been homeschooled right from the beginning, from day one. And then I would have a big, huge business still in Pittsburgh because all the cameras would have been wrapped and out there by 4 o'clock, okay? But they started at 4, and Holly couldn't be there till like 5:30. So we started shooting late. Now imagine, there's a gentleman back here with a baseball hat. Any other guys here? Okay, imagine you left work early, you go to school to pick up your child, to rush them to the dance studio, you're feeding them in the car, they're changing their clothes maybe not, in the back seat. They get to the studio, they jump out of the car, there's rain or snow or ice or whatever, 20 below zero, Pittsburgh, and they can't get the door open. The door won't open. There's cars in the parking lot because there's a 6'4" guy on the other side holding the door shut because they're filming in the lobby and you can't come in. All this stuff was going on while I was in the other room teaching, and they destroyed my business. It was awful. But glad to say that senior company, 7 of those high school graduates that year have been on Broadway. They've been here, they've been there, they've been around the world in Steven Spielberg's film. 2 kids in there, not just one. And they've all been quite successful. And those are the kids, unfortunately, that I feel you should know who they are. The other kids are multimillionaires. One just was on Forbes 30 under 30 list. It's insane what happened with that show. And I was hunted down by Pennsylvania, but that's another story. Okay, we have some questions, yes? Thank you all for listening to me. Thank you for coming here to the Ultimate Women's Expo. It's fabulous. I'm looking out, it's pink, it looks great. Questions?
Maybe leave out of time for questions today, sorry, but then we can
Do
have some
one.
questions over at the booth. All right, let's do one. Who's got a question for Abby Lee? Please come out.
Who else has to speak? Someone next, up here? Okay.
Abby Lee, this is Callie.
Hi, Callie.
Hi, Abby. I know that you've mentioned like future endeavors in dance and maybe returning to TV, and I also have been watching your YouTube channel and you mentioning the things with the music and copyright in your music. Is there an update to that, or are you willing to sacrifice that again?
Are you talking about the music I produced? Like It's a Girl Party and...
The music that you were forced to use.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, so when you guys watch the show, the music at the beginning, in the first few episodes, we used real music in the TV show, real music, popular music that you would find on any channel. And when it went to compete, when they edited the film, they dubbed other music behind it. So we're choreographing, Miss Gianna and I are choreographing you turn round and round in the song, right? Or my head spins round and round. So we're doing turns in second on those lyrics. Then they edit it, and the turns are on the lyrics, "You've got my back up against the wall." And I'm like, what? It was constant. And that's just one little example. It was horrendous. So when we watched the first episode, she was sitting right next to me. We're looking at it and we're like, nobody is ever gonna watch this crap. It's so bad. The dancing was so bad. But remember, it was a housewives show. It wasn't until episode 3, which is 1 now, the network came to me and said, "We need a new number every week." And I said, "What? With who?" And they said, "What do you mean with who? With your cast?" I'm like, "You never auditioned them. You sat them in a chair and you interviewed these kids. They can't do a new number every week. Poor Paige can't even remember one number all year." Like, no, and I'm not being mean, it's the truth. They were not, if any one of those mothers had to fly to LA for their kid to audition to be on a TV show for all those seasons and make millions of dollars, they would have never gone. Never, and I know it. Melissa would have been too busy working on the next husband, and the kid could have gone if I took her, but that was it. Chloe, she wasn't allowed to miss a minute of school, not 1 minute of school, and she didn't have any money. She bounced every check she wrote, and then Kelly would have been drunk somewhere and wouldn't have gotten the plane tickets and wouldn't have done it fast enough. And Holly, are you kidding? The kid had to beg her for 2 weeks, beg her to come into the interview. And she left that principal job high and dry and never looked back. So none of those kids would be household names if they had to have gone to LA or New York and auditioned for the show. Never. One more question?
I can't do it. I'm so sorry. We've got time for you to. People are going to come and see you though at the booth.
I'm going to go to the booth and take pictures.